Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Scrapbook.com's brand new Hooray paper pad. Scrapbook.com has been releasing so many amazing pattern paper pads. Their newest collection is called Hooray. It's available in A2 and also 6x8 sizes. I'll just flip through it quickly so you can get an idea of what's included. Lots of really fun patterns for birthday and celebration. Plus there are several designs you could use throughout the year. Wouldn't need to be for a celebration card. I'll also be using the new Hooray stamp set and coordinating dies, plus the new Scoops of Fun shape die set. These are both so much fun and all of the products work well together. If you are interested in any of the products I use in this video, I do have links in the description box below. I have 5 different card designs to share with you today. So we'll go ahead and get started with card design number 1. For the background of my card, I selected the stripe paper. For the smaller panel, I'm using the soft purple solid pattern paper. I cut this piece to 3 7/8 of an inch by 5 1/8 of an inch. And I added a fun pierced star detail to the background using a die from Pretty Pink Posh. I'll put adhesive on the back using Scrapbook.com's deluxe adhesive roller. Add the light purple piece on the stripe paper. Put more adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. I've already cut out all of the die cut pieces and I have them stored in the smaller size stack and sort tray. That way I don't lose those itty bitty pieces. I'll be adding the sentiment, your scoops of fun. For the fun sentiment, these are individual letters and I cut them out from the ice cream cone pattern paper. The die set has the option of adding the little icing or melted ice cream at the top of the letters. And I cut out those pieces using the pastel glossy cardstock. So it has this beautiful shine to it. I think this is a really fun detail for the sentiment. The die set also includes the option to add those pieces on the word you if you're using the sentiment, happy birthday to you. I'm using Scrapbook.com's Artiste glue and I have the ultra fine metal tip on my bottle. I'm gluing all the die cut pieces on a cut down version of the Project Grip Mat. If I get glue all over the silicone mat, it's super easy to clean. For the rest of the sentiment, your scoops of fun. For the words, I use some of the solid colored pattern paper. And for the outline piece, I use some white brush cardstock from Spellbinders. So it has that beautiful pearlescent finish. The outline piece has the different words debossed on it, so it's super easy to line up the die cut words. Some of the words are one die cut piece, others are several. The word your, the Y is separate, and the apostrophe is separate. After adhering all of the words down, now I'll add that little apostrophe. First put a tiny drop of Artiste glue and I'll pick up the die cut piece using the wax tip end of Scrapbook.com's Craft Pro Pick tool. Then I'll nudge that piece in place with my tweezers. Next I'll assemble the ice cream cone. Now this piece does not look like a cone, it's a scallop circle, but it does have some score lines after you die cut it out. So following those score lines, I'll fold this piece of paper and I'm using a bone folder to flatten the edges. I'm adding 2 scoops of ice cream. Put vanilla in first, then I have chocolate ice cream with colorful sprinkles. After attaching the vanilla ice cream scoop, Now I'll put artiste glue on the inside of those folded edges of the cone and adhere them together. Put just a tiny bit of artiste glue on the bottom of the chocolate ice cream scoop and attach it on the top. Once the glue dries, those pieces aren't going anywhere, but I will add a small piece of clear double-sided adhesive tape on the back just to hold it together for now. I have my sentiment assembled and my image. I will be popping up all of the die cut pieces using some foam dimension. I selected the small foam squares in the 1 millimeter thickness. It'll add just that little bit of dimension without a lot of bulk. So I would still be able to mail this card without paying additional postage. I'll make sure to get good coverage so there isn't one area that sags. And behind some of the narrow pieces, like on the letter F, I will cut the squares in half. Now put foam squares behind the longer arch portion of the sentiment, and then finally behind the double scoop ice cream cone. And I did remove the release paper from the clear double-sided adhesive tape on the back of the ice cream cone. Now I'll remove the release paper from the foam. Start with adding the Your Scoops of portion of the sentiment at the top of the card. I'll put the ice cream cone underneath, making sure to leave enough space at the bottom for the word fun. I'll first lay out the 3 letters, making sure to space them evenly apart. And instead of trying to put them straight up and down, I'll adhere them at a slight angle, alternating the direction. I have just one final letter to adhere. And there is my finished card. I think this one turned out super cute, and I did make 2 using this design. I love the look of the glossy cardstock on the word fun. Now moving on to card design number 2. I am using a card sketch for inspiration. This is from Sketch Saturday. It's number 769. For the background of my card, using this beautiful pink floral pattern paper, and I cut that piece to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. The back side of the floral paper has the light pink solid. I'll add that strip on the left side of the card, and I'll layer the background on some of the orange solid. That piece is an additional 1/8 of an inch. So 4 1/8 of an inch by 5 3/8 of an inch. Put more adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I used the same solid orange pattern paper for the hexagon, and this die set is from scrapbook.com. It's their nested hexagon die set. I love having all the different shape die sets. Before adhering it down, I will put a scrap piece of pattern paper on the right side, just in the area where it goes off of that light pink strip. That way it stays at the same level and doesn't dip down. Then I'll put adhesive on the back and adhere the hexagon in place. The sentiment stamp set I'm using for this card is scrapbook.com's Happy Birthday, and I also have the coordinating dies. I've already gone ahead and stamped and cut it out. Use black ink on white cardstock. On the very left side of the sentiment, I'm adding a small scrap piece of pattern paper, and I'll also be popping it up with foam dimension, but I'll do that here in a moment. Inside the hexagon, I'm adding 2 balloons, and I cut these out from the rainbow glitter paper from scrapbook.com. The balloon images are from the new nested round balloons die set. This is the smallest size balloon on that set. Since the rainbow glitter paper is fairly thin, I cut out a second piece from some white cardstock, and I'll glue the 2 pieces together, just for that little extra stability. For the balloon strings, I used the holographic mirror paper, selected one of the silver holographic designs, so it's super sparkly. On the back side of the balloons, I'm adding a small piece of clear double-sided adhesive tape. This is the 1/8 inch size. And I'll also put a tiny drop of artiste glue at the bottom of the balloon. I'm adding the strings fairly high on the back side of the balloon to shorten the strings. I don't want them hanging down too low past the hexagon. So once I've attached both of the strings, I'll put artiste glue on the back, add the first glitter balloon down on the left side of the hexagon, and the other balloon will overlap it just slightly on the right side. This glitter paper is so nice since the glitter does not shed at all. After adhering the two balloons, now I'll add the sentiment. For foam dimension, I'm using the 1/8 inch foam strips in the 1mm thickness. I love Scrapbook.com's 1mm foam, and it's available in several different sizes. The foam strips fit perfectly behind narrow sentiments. I'll remove the release paper and add the sentiment following the design of the card sketch. So the very left side will go off of the hexagon. For embellishments, I'll add 5 of these little twinkle stars, and the dies are from Scrapbook.com's Disco die set. There are 2 different sizes, and I use more of the holographic mirror paper. I'll put 2 in the upper left-hand corner, 1 underneath the balloons on the right side, and the final 2 twinkle stars will go underneath the sentiment on the right. It's always fun when different die sets include these little pieces that can be used perfectly as embellishments. And I love the look of the little twinkle stars. I have 1 final star to attach. And it adds lots of sparkle since I use the holographic mirror paper. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. This is another fairly flat card since the only foam I used is behind the sentiment. Now moving on to card design number 3. I selected this lovely pattern paper that I think has more of the twinkle stars. Lots of pretty colors, pink, purple, green, and blues. I'll add a full A2 panel on an A2 size card base. Next, I'll cut out a fun wavy rectangle frame using Scrapbook.com's new white and black glossy cardstock and their wavy nested rectangle die set. I selected 2 of the larger sizes, and when used together, you get this fun wavy frame. The nested wavy dies are also available in circle, ovals, and squares, and I will be using the squares for this card. After putting artiste glue on the back of the wavy frame, I'll adhere it on the background, and I am placing a large acrylic block on top for some added weight while the glue dries. I've already gone ahead and stamped the sentiment Hooray. I stamped it on the light purple solid pattern paper, and I cut out the sentiment using one of the nested wavy square frames. I cut out another nested wavy square frame. This is the next size up. Use more of the glossy black cardstock. I'll adhere the 2 pieces together using artiste glue. For the rest of the sentiment, it's your day. I use some of the light cream solid pattern paper. This is the same color I used for the ice cream cone on the first card. Using the outline die, I also cut out a piece from the black glossy cardstock. I'll adhere the 2 pieces together, offsetting them slightly so you can see some of that black shine underneath and on the left side of the sentiment. And I did use both artiste glue and also some clear double-sided adhesive tape since I am adhering the sentiment on some specialty cardstock. Now I'll add a foam strip on the back side of the sentiment, and I'll also be popping up the larger Hooray portion of the sentiment. This time I grab the 1/4 inch foam in the 1mm thickness. I almost always use the 1mm foam unless I'm making a shaker card or just want more dimension. I'll make sure to get good coverage on the back of the Hooray word, remove the release paper, and I'll adhere it in the center of the card, putting it slightly higher at the top. Then I'll add the rest of the sentiment underneath. I've also stamped and cut out 2 of the smiley faces, and these images are part of the Hooray stamp set. I stamped them on more of the cream solid pattern paper, and the ink color I use is Distress Oxide Mowed Lawn. It matches beautifully with the green on the pattern paper. I'll add the 2 smiley faces above the sentiment in the upper left-hand corner. I'm only putting the foam squares behind the upper portion of the smiley faces since the bottom will sit slightly on the sentiment. And this time I'm using the 2mm small foam squares. Since the Hooray is already popped up with 1mm foam and it's attached to the glossy cardstock, I needed just that little extra dimension for the images. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. Now moving on to card design number 4. This card is really fun. I selected 2 pattern papers, and I've already gone ahead and cut out that little wavy drip using the die from the Scoops of Fun die set. For the bottom portion, I have the ice cream cone design, and the top is the solid light pink pattern paper. I'll be adding both of the pieces on some dark brown cardstock, and this cardstock color is part of the neutral smooth cardstock paper pad. Now for some reason I hadn't already cut down those background pieces, so the whole background piece would be 4 inches by 5¼ inches. I think I still had them at a full A2 size. And I didn't realize that until I started recording this card. But no worries, I will still make it work. I grabbed a piece of white cardstock, cut down that piece to 4 inches by 5¼ inches, then I'll adhere the 2 pattern paper pieces on top. I want to make sure to get that wavy drip line all lined up together. So once those are adhered, I'll flip over this panel, use a pair of scissors, and trim off the overhang. And I'm using Scrapbook.com's titanium scissors. Now I'll add that piece on the dark brown cardstock layer. Put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base. This card will feature the sentiment, "Happy Birthday to You." And I've already assembled it. It's the same as the first card. The background piece is debossed, so it's super easy to line up the words. And for the word "you," it has those drip pieces. This time I cut them out of brown cardstock. I used the sprinkle pattern paper for the words, and with the brown cardstock for the drips, it looks like fudge dripping down on some ice cream. I've already put foam dimension behind the sentiment. I'll add "Happy Birthday to" down first, and for the word "you," this time I want to adhere it nice and straight. For a guide, I'm adding a 1/4 inch strip of Scrapbook.com's mint tape, and I lined it up using the grid marks on my craft mat. I'll lay out all of the letters first to get even placement, then I'll adhere one at a time. Once the sentiment's down, I'll remove the mint tape. To make that fudge look a little more realistic, I'm adding a glossy accent on those brown cardstock pieces. I'll make sure to get good coverage, trying not to get any air bubbles, and I'm pushing the glossy accents around, getting it to the edge of the brown cardstock pieces. Right now it has that very milky look, but once it dries, it's super shiny. For a final finishing touch, I'm using some pops of color for embellishments. This is the Pearl Bubblegum color. It almost matches this soft pink pattern paper perfectly. I'll add 3 drops in the upper right hand corner and 2 underneath the letter Y on the left side. I like to flatten my drops, so I'll gently tap the edge of my card against a stack and sort tray. So there is my finished card. Love how this one turned out and super easy to make. Now moving on to my final card design, number 5. For this card, I'm not using the Hooray pattern paper. Instead, I'm using this lovely green design from the Ombre pattern paper pad. I've already set up the sentiment in my mini MISTI. Happy birthday to you, this fun arch design. I'll ink it up a few times to get a nice solid impression. The background piece is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I'll adhere it on some brushed white cardstock from Spellbinders. Put more adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base. For a little bit of sparkle, I'm adding 2 narrow strips of the holographic mirror paper. Put the wider strip down first, and it's wide enough that I was able to add the 1/8 inch clear double-sided tape. But for the other strip, it's very narrow, so instead I'll put some Artiste glue on the back. I'm using that first strip as a guide to get the second one nice and straight. This card will feature the fun ice cream cone image from the Hooray stamp set. And this is a layered stamp. I'll start with the ice cream cone. The ink color I'm using is from Catherine Pooler. It's Buttercream. And I will ink it up 2 times to get a nice solid impression. To clean the stamp, I'll use one of the stamp chamois. This is the cotton candy color. And yes, my stamp chamois is very colorful. Some inks do stain, but it still works great. For the second piece of the ice cream cone, adds those grid lines. I'm using Catherine Pooler's Gingerbread ink color. So there's the ice cream cone all stamped. I will be cutting it out using the coordinating dies, and I find it easier to cut out the image first before adding the ice cream at the top. I'll hold the die in place using some mint tape. Right now it looks like it has vanilla ice cream on top, but I'm making this ice cream cone mint chocolate chip. I kept the negative portion of cardstock, so you can see where the die cut piece has been cut out. I'll put it in my mini MISTI. Then I'll add the ice cream cone die cut piece back in place, secure it using more mint tape. I'll line up the ice cream stamp, and the ink color I'm using is Catherine Pooler's Wintergreen. It's a very soft green color. Looks a little bit darker right now, but it does lighten as it dries. For the swirly stripes on the ice cream, the color is Catherine Pooler's Spruce. It's a darker green color. I'll ink it up a couple times to get a nice solid impression. So by stamping on the already cut out die cut piece, it was very easy to line up that top ice cream portion. If I had stamped the ice cream cone and the ice cream, then tried to cut it out, I may not have lined up everything correctly, and I wouldn't have had that perfect white border around the image. I'll put Artiste glue on the back, add the ice cream cone underneath the arch sentiment. For embellishments, I'm adding more of the twinkle stars. This time I use the silver mirror paper from the holographic mirror paper pad. I'll put 3 in the upper left-hand corner and 2 in the lower right-hand corner. I will place a large acrylic block on top for some added weight, making sure everything lays nice and flat. I mentioned earlier this is a mint chocolate chip ice cream, so I need to add those chocolate chips. Grabbed pops of color. This is the Gloss Chocolate Kiss color. Just putting some teeny tiny little drops on the ice cream. And just to make sure there weren't any air bubbles, I first squeezed out the pops of color on a small scrap piece of cardstock, and a big blob came out, and I'm so glad I did that on the scrap cardstock instead of on my card. Now here's another look at the 10 cards I made using Scrapbook.com's brand new Hooray paper pad along with some of their fun birthday stamp and die sets. This paper collection is perfect for masculine or feminine cards, adults and kids. It has a fun variety of different designs and colors. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. It's always a good idea to have some birthday cards on hand, and many of the papers and images could also be used for non-birthday or celebration cards. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.